We're gonna spread happiness. We're gonna spread freedom. Obama's gonna change it, 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 change it.
Are you awake?
The fifth column.
Cops on the beat.
The fifth column.
Cops on the beat.
The fifth column.
Crime and intelligence.
The fifth column.
Cops on the beat.
There comes a time when silence is betrayal. The fifth column. The fifth column.
Fingerprints or facial recognition. Fingerprints or facial recognition.
Biometric tracking. Biometric.
Facial recognition.
Let me tell you why you're here. You're here because you know something. What you know you can't explain, but you feel it.
The fifth column.
The fifth column is your insurrectionist news source covering the ongoing revolution and struggle for freedom in America. Brought to you by the American Freedom Radio Network in partnership with Atlas Media Online. The fifth column, speaking truth to power. And now, here's your host, Hank Xavier, the HX.
Back on the fifth column, you are live with me, the one and only H to the IZX, Hank Xavier, if you know me, on the American Freedom Radio Network. This is the debut broadcast, August 3rd. You're going to want to stick around after the show. We're in the final hour for Deadline Live with Jack Blood. During the RNC08, we saw the confiscation of property, warrantless searches. People were breaking into houses. They were beating people up, deploying chemical weapons, deploying tasers. They were beating people with clubs. They were shooting people with flash grenades. They were shooting people with tear gas canisters. And I'm not talking about shooting them, just in the crowd. I'm talking about leveling down the barrel of this cannon-like weapon, and firing tear gas canisters into people's bodies. That's unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable brutality. Absolutely unacceptable brutality. And it kills people. It kills and maims and injures people. But they don't care because they've got $100 million to cover their ass. Pardon my French. All respect to the French. Getting my hackles raised up here in Ammo Studios. No, boy, I like to rant. I'll get going. But yeah. Another thing that they did down there is that they would arrest these people, and then they would trump up a whole bunch of charges that would keep them mired in the system for however many months, and then over a period of a year, 2 years, 3 years, they'll knock off charges and so forth. And really, what I think that this tactic is about, this tactic isn't about putting people in jail, right? This tactic is about taking activists out of the equation. This tactic is about tying up people in these legal proceedings so they can't talk to other people, they can't associate with other people for fear of it affecting their case. They can't, because this is an experience that I'm having right now. I know I've been on long-term speaking terms with one of the organizers of the RNC Welcoming Committee. I only know him through the internet, but we've talked for a long time, and we met in a under conditions that had nothing to do with politics whatsoever. It was philosophy and mysticism and occultism and brainy things, like that, at a forum called Mayhem. And so I met him under conditions that weren't political, but since he was an organizer and he was involved in this stuff, and so considering that I knew the guy, I've been trying to get him to come on with an interview and talk about the things that he's seen, the things that he witnessed, a lot of the police misconduct. I don't want him to talk about, sensitive details about the case or any of that stuff, but I can't get this guy to come on. I can't get this guy to come on and talk about what happened up there and let the free people of this country know the tyranny and oppression that took place in the Twin Cities that day, because he's locked down in the court system up there. He's mired down in the system that's going to, and they drag it out over years, months and years, so that it takes you out of the game, so that it takes you out of the game in a way that it starts to impact your connections. It starts to impact your support infrastructure. People lose touch. It does all these things. It makes people afraid to talk to the media for fear of impacting the case, which means that information can't get out, that the mass people at large can't get behind these causes because they can't talk about it. That's what this kind of tactic is about, man. They know that they don't have the evidence necessary to convict them in front of a jury. But that's not what it's about. It's about the charges. It's about miring them down in the system and turning them into a number that they can then control for a few years. It's all strategic, man. And at the RNC08, do you know, and I'm sure that this audience as well, this audience is well aware of what happened up there, but Amy Goodman from Democracy Now! Got arrested at the RNC08. She's famous around the world, media, personality. Everybody knows Amy Goodman. Everybody knows Democracy Now! It was obvious that she was a journalist. It was obvious that she was there with a camera. She had a microphone in her hand, and these pigs grabbed her up like she was a terrorist, man. And they snatched her up and they shoved her in the back of this car. And poor little Amy, she's just a half buck of nothing, and she was being jerked around and jostled and bruised up and all this stuff. And it's ridiculous, man. It's absolutely ridiculous. Targeting journalists is Soviet-style oppression, ladies and gentlemen. Soviet-style oppression. When you start to see that sort of thing, you know that the end is nigh, my friends. But not only do they target journalists, but they also target medics. They also targeted medics at the RNC08, and this was a means to attack the infrastructure of the resistance. Right? They know that if they can knock out the support infrastructure, that they can knock out the resistance. So that's why they go after journalists. That's why they go after medics. I was talking to an associate of mine from back in the 9/11 Truth Days. He was a candidate for Senate. This was a senatorial candidate, for Christ's sake, that was protesting up here. I'm talking about Michael Kavlin. You can probably Google him and find some stuff on him. But he was a Green Party candidate for senator. He is he's a registered nurse specializing in trauma treatment, and he was volunteering his time during the RNC. He was on the street, on the ground, volunteering his time to look after people's health. When people would get shot in the face, with rubber bullets and with tear gas canisters, and these were causing serious injuries. People were having respiratory distress. People were having cardiac distress, and Michael was there to help people and to save lives. And these pigs targeted him as a medic specifically. He had people coming up to him on the street while they were involved in all this stuff saying, "Hey, man, you better get out of here. You better get out of here. I just heard those cops over there talking about target the medic, get the medic." Now, why would they come? They wouldn't come up with an idea like that on their own. Of course that had to be a directive. Of course they had to be directed to target journalists and medics. Who in their right mind would target a medic who's trying to save somebody's life to come up and beat him with a baton and put him in handcuffs and shuttle him off on some bus somewhere? Certainly not anybody that was concerned for people at all. This was a directive that came down from the authorities. It was specific. It was specific to take out the support infrastructure of resistance. And this is something that the people who are going to the G20 in Pittsburgh need to understand and need to keep their eyes open for. We need to remember history and learn from it.
She said, I am the one. Now should we dance on the floor in the round? Oh. She told me her name was Billie Jean. And she crossed the scene, and her head grew heavy, and eyes were dreamy in the warm. Now should we dance on the floor in the round? She said, I am the one. Now should we dance on the floor